Hey guys, what's up? It's all about Mikey18 here with another chibi episode review. Guys, I just finished watching the newest episode of Breaking Bad. Oh man, I was looking forward to watching this episode all week long. I honestly was. So guys, in this video I will be reviewing Breaking Bad Season 5, Episode 12, Rabid Dog. Ever since they ended last week's episode, guys, with that shot of Jesse dumping the gasoline in Walt's house, that killed me, the way they just ended it like that, and I was like, oh man, I can't wait for next week's episode. I could not wait for tonight at 9, so I just finished watching the episode, guys. A lot of interesting things happened tonight as well, so I'm going to be here to, I'm making this video to review the episode. I'm going to discuss the whole thing for you guys, and, yeah, unfortunately, we have 4 episodes left of Breaking Bad. I know that sucks. We have only 4 weeks left of the show, and then it's over for good. But things are really starting to get intense now, so I'm really, in a way, I'm looking forward to the end because I can't wait to see what happens. So anyway, guys, I do apologize for the crappy webcam quality, as I always do, but I film these episode reviews because they're a lot easier for me to record and upload quicker on YouTube, so that's why I'm using my webcam all the time for episode reviews, so I do apologize for that. But anyway, let's talk about tonight's episode. There's so many things to get into. I don't want to make this video too long, so let's start discussing the episode. So guys, if you don't know already, the last 2 episode reviews I did for Breaking Bad, I am going to spoil the whole entire episode in this video. There's no way for me to do a review of this new episode without spoiling it. So if you did not watch the episode yet, if you didn't get a chance to see it tonight, don't watch this video. Watch the episode first on demand, rewatch it when it re-airs on AMC, whatever, and then come back and watch my review. But if you haven't seen the episode yet, don't watch it yet. Don't watch this review yet because I'm going to spoil the whole thing. I have a lot of things to discuss. I'm going to talk mostly about the plot summary. I want to give you a couple of my thoughts on the episode, and of course, towards the end of the video, I want to give you a couple of my predictions as to what will possibly happen on next week's episode. Because like I said, we only got 4 left, and there are a lot of predictions that can be made. So anyway, guys, let's get into tonight's episode. I'm going to start talking about the plot summary. So as we all know, they ended last week's episode. Last week's episode, in my opinion, is marks the breaking point in Walt and Jesse's relationship. It's the point of no return. Their relationship is done. It's over. Jesse is done with Walt. At this point, he probably wants to kill him. So at the end of last week's episode, Jesse found out Walt was the one who poisoned Brock. I'm not going to really get into that. If you watched last week's episode, you know what I'm talking about. So he stole Saul's car and he drove over to Walt's house. He took out a can of gasoline and began pouring it all over the place, and that's how they ended it. So tonight's episode, they literally opened it up with Walt looking at his house in his car. He's on his street, on his block, you know. And we see the house, nothing's wrong with it, it's not on fire or anything, and we're like, what the hell's going on here? We see Saul's car still in Walt's driveway where Jesse left it when he drove into onto his driveway. And so Walt pulls out his .38 snub, as we all remember. He took it from the car wash's vending machine in last week's episode, and he goes to his house. He goes in through the back entrance. And he looks around, he calls out Jesse. We see nothing in the house. No, Jesse's not in the house. No one else is in the house. We see the can of gasoline on the floor, and the carpet is soaked with the gas. And we're all like, what? What? Where's Jesse? Why isn't the house on fire right now? Why did he not do it? So all these things are going through my head. This was probably one of the most intense moments of the whole episode, in my opinion. My heart was just like beating. I was like, is Jesse in this room? Is he in that room? So Walt checks every single room. Jesse's not in the house. So it cuts to the intro, and we're like, where's Jesse? I literally tweeted, where's Jesse? And I was all shocked. I think that was the biggest question for me all night, until 20 minutes later, where was Jesse? So anyway, after the commercials, the show comes back on, and Walt called these guys to, you know, come and take the smell of the gas out of the carpet. You know, they're going over the carpet with those carpet sweeper things. And Huel comes over. He takes Saul's car, and I guess Walt had told him everything. And Walt tells him to go over to Walt Jr.'s school to look for Jesse, to make sure Walt Jr. is all right. Because Jesse, at this point, he's still on the loose. No one knows where Jesse is. So Huel leaves. Walt goes inside, and the carpet guys tell him that you can't get the smell out of the carpet. So Walt builds up a plan. He obviously doesn't want Skylar to know what Jesse just did. She'll freak out. So it's hours later. Skylar, the baby, and Walt Jr. come home. There's still the smell of gas in the house on the carpet, and Walt cooks up this story that he was at a gas station, and one of the pumps had a malfunction, and the gas exploded all over his clothes, and he ran home, and that's why there's a smell of gas everywhere, and there's a smell of gas in his car. So that's Walt's phony story, and at this point, I'm like, are you guys really believing that? Are you buying this, Skylar, really? So anyway, Walt suggests that they all go over to a hotel for a couple of days just to get away from the smell of the gas and everything. And I kind of feel that Walt suggested this just to get them away from the house because Jesse's still out there. Jesse could come back and try to kill them again, for all we know, as he just tried to do. So that's probably another reason why Walt tried to get them away. So they all go over to a hotel, this really big hotel, this luxurious hotel, and Walt meets with Saul outside in Saul's car, and one of his henchmen, that comedian guy who plays one of Saul's henchmen, and they're still looking for Jesse. They don't know where he is. They've looked everywhere. They tell Walt this. Walt is shocked. He doesn't know. No one knows where he is. And Saul brings up the idea. He also makes a comparison to what could happen to Jesse to Old Yeller and the fact that there's a Rabid Dog. That's why the title of the episode is Rabid Dog. Anyway, I don't want to get too into that. Well, Saul basically tells Walt that you're going to have to kill Jesse. He's still on the loose. He just tried to kill your family. I mean, come on, man. That's basically what Saul was trying to tell Walt. And Walt, surprisingly, I thought he would be like, I thought he would tell Saul, you know what, I might have to. He defends Jesse and tells him, no, I'm not going to... He tells Saul, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to kill him. He's like, Saul, what are you saying or whatever? And so at this point, we're like, wow, Walt, he doesn't want to kill Jesse, even though Jesse just tried to set his house on fire. And that kind of surprised me. It shows that Walt still does have some feelings for Jesse, even though he feels Jesse's messed up at this point. Walt tells Saul that he's got to just sit down with Jesse, have a talk with him, and explain why he had to poison Brock. So that's what Walt feels, that he could still save Jesse and stop him from trying to kill him and his family. So Walt leaves Saul. He's pissed that Saul suggested that he kills Jesse, and he goes to him and Skylar's room in the hotel. And Skylar's like, oh, I saw you out there with Saul. So Walt ends up telling her the whole thing, why they ended up going to a hotel. It turns out she didn't buy his phony story that they went, there was a gas pump malfunction. Walt tells her that Jesse is the one who poured the gasoline all over the house and that he tried to burn the house down and that he's still out there. And Skylar's shocked. She's obviously pissed off. And she brings up the idea that... Walt is probably going to have to kill Jesse. So that's 2 times. 2 different people suggested Walt should kill Jesse. And again, Walt defends Jesse, saying, oh, there's something wrong with him. You know, he's not all right. You know, I just have to sit him down and talk to him about this whole situation. And Skylar's like, no. She basically tells Walt, you got to kill Jesse. So, that's not good. Walt could end up being swayed by all these people telling him, you gotta kill Jesse, you gotta kill Jesse, and he might end up doing it. But as of right now, Walt does not want to kill Jesse. So that's how they end it with that. And then they cut to commercial. We still don't know where Jesse is. When the show comes back on, it's a flashback. Hours later, like a couple hours ago, it shows Jesse pouring the gasoline in the house. So it's back to where we left off last week. And he's pouring the gasoline all over the house, and he literally pulls out a match, so it turns out Jesse was going to do it. He didn't just throw the gas can on the floor and just run out of the house and leave and abandon it, what he was going to do. It turns out Jesse did want to set the house on fire. So he literally has the match, he's about to drop it, and at this point, I think this was the biggest jaw-dropping moment of the whole episode to a lot of people. To me, and I'm being serious, guys, I called this moment coming. I predicted it. I said it. I even mentioned it last week. I said this is going to happen. Hank and Jesse are going to meet and work together. I kind of predicted it last week. That is what happens tonight. Hank barges in. He goes into Walt's house and he has a gun. And he tells Jesse, stop, don't throw the match, don't do this, we're going to get him. And Jesse's like crying, and he's like freaking out. He's like, no, he poisoned an 8-year-old, I have to do this. And then Hank's like, don't worry, we'll get him. There'll be a time that we'll get him. And so Hank gets Jesse to get out of the house, and he puts him in his car, and they drive off. So I'm sure a lot of people, I even was wondering, well, how did Hank know Jesse was going to be at the White residence? What was going on with that? It turns out that, if you guys remember last week's episode, Hank left the DEA. He told that secretary or whatever that he was going out for a while. Hank actually went to Saul's office to spy on Jesse, and he saw Jesse leaving in Saul's car, so he followed Jesse to the White residence, and that's when he went inside the White residence and held up his gun to Jesse and told him, don't do this. So that is why Hank met up with Jesse at this point. I'm sure a lot of people were shocked that the two of them did finally meet. And yeah, I kind of call that coming, but I'll talk about that a little bit later on. My prediction was actually right. Jesse and Hank are going to end up start working together. So I was kind of happy about that for once my prediction was actually going to be true. And a lot of people were actually predicting this as well, so it's kind of coming true right now. But anyway, so Hank brings Jesse to his house, and he actually brings Jesse to his house. And Marie comes home. She was at a therapy session with her doctor. I'm not going to get into that. It's not as entertaining as what's really going on with the story. The big thing that's going on with the story. And Hank is trying to get her out of the house, to get her away for a couple days. Excuse me. She finds out that Jesse's in the house. Hank reveals, yeah, I got Jesse here. He's sleeping like in one of Hank's beds, and Hank gave him a couple of sleeping pills to relieve Jesse's tension. He's very anxious, and I thought Marie was going to be kind of pissed about this, but she's like, well, wait, will this help us bring down Walt? And then Hank's like, yeah. And she's like, okay, fine, let him stay, and I'm going to stay, too. So I was like, oh, okay. So Marie and Hank both want Walt. They both want to get him. So it's not just Hank. Marie wants him, too, obviously. So anyway, so Jesse's over at Hank's house. Meanwhile, at some point in the episode, Walt ended up leaving 2 voicemails on Jesse's phone. He called Jesse twice. Once telling him to... that he's sorry about all this, that he wants to just sit down and talk with him about all this, about this whole situation, about the poisoning and all that. And so he leaves those messages on Jesse's phone, and Hank picks up Jesse's phone because Jesse's in Hank's house. Hank listens to the voicemails, and at this point I was like, oh wow, that shows that Jesse and Walt did have a strong relationship. So that's evidence for Hank right there, because as we all know, Hank is still after that evidence that he wants, just to get Walt. So it's literally later on in the episode, Jesse wakes up in Hank's house, and we see Hank. He goes into Hank's living room, and Hank's setting up a video camera, and the camera moves into the living room. And this is the other part of the episode where I was like, whoa. We see Gomez, Hank's partner, Gomi, you know Gomi, in Hank's living room, and I was like, wow. Apparently Hank tells Gomez, and only Gomez, that his brother-in-law is Heisenberg. He's the one who's been cooking meth this whole time. We don't see, they don't show Hank telling Gomez, but we obviously know, since Gomez is in Hank's house, and they're about to sit down and talk with Jesse, we know that Gomez knows about all this. Hank obviously told him. So Gomez is now another person who knows about Walt. And apparently they're both keeping it a secret from the DEA, because they haven't told anyone as of this episode either. So they're setting up a video camera, and they basically want Jesse to make a confession, kind of like what Walt did. And at this point, I was like, wow, is Hank going to try to blackmail Walt? Telling him, oh, look, I got Jesse. He's willing to turn you in. I got his word now, and it's going to go against your word, and that's my evidence. So that's what Hank had planned to do. He sits Jesse down, and Jesse makes a confession. He tells the camera every single thing that him and Jesse did. They don't obviously show that, but we learn that Jesse does tell them everything. So Gomez talks this over with Hank, and then they both realize that this isn't strong evidence that they need. They don't have any materials, that would link Walt to all these meth cookings and that Walt is Heisenberg. They just have Jesse's word against Walt's. With Jesse's confession. So that really won't do them any good. So they still need evidence. So they're still screwed. They got Jesse on their side. Jesse is working with them at this point, and they still need more. That's definitely not enough. So Jesse, in a scene a little bit later on, Jesse is talking with Hank and Gomez, and it turns out that Walt left another voicemail, a second voicemail on Jesse's phone, telling him to meet him at a plaza to talk about this whole situation. Because as we all know, as of right now, Walt does not want to kill Jesse. He just wants to discuss what happened, and he wants to tell him why he poisoned Brock. He wants to explain why he wants to explain himself. So, Walt wants to meet Jesse at this plaza, and Hank has the idea that Jesse wears a wire, and Jesse goes over, he meets with Walt. Jesse's obviously against this. He doesn't want to, see him. He just doesn't want anything to do with Walt. He just wants to get Walt for everything he's done. So, Jesse is against this. Hank suggests that Jesse wears a wire, and he goes over to meet with Walt, and Walt possibly slips up and admits a couple things. Maybe he'll say a few things about how they've cooked meth or whatever, and that'll be Hank's evidence that he needs. And Jesse says, I don't think Walt's going to do that. I don't think he'll say anything. So he's against Hank's plan at this point. So Jesse leaves the room, and Hank and Gomez have a bit of a discussion. And Hank admits that he really doesn't care about Jesse at this point. He is kind of using Jesse in a way. He just wants that evidence that Walt is Heisenberg and that Walt has been Heisenberg all this time. And Hank tells... actually, Jesse was the one who told Hank that Walt may want to kill him. So... so after Jesse left the room, Hank and Gomez are talking amongst themselves, and Hank's like, you know what, if Walt kills Jesse, we'll get it all on videotape. So he holds up the video camera. So him and Gomez hatch this plan. It cuts to commercial, and this is the last scene in the episode. Walt is waiting at the plaza. He's waiting on this bench. His back is turned, and Jesse is in Hank's van. Hank and Jesse are both at this plaza, and Hank's putting the wire on Jesse, and Gomez is in another car, and he has the video camera aimed at the front of Walt, and so they're going to record this. So if Hank ends up killing Jesse, that could be evidence. Again, if anyone kills Jesse, that could be their evidence that they need, a small part of evidence that they need to convict Walt. So, Hank tells him, just go out there, you got the wire, and just have that discussion with him or whatever. So so Jesse leaves the van, and he begins walking over to Jesse in like one of the slowest walks ever. He's just walking over there. He's getting a little paranoid, and he stops like right in the middle of his walk. He's like staring right at the back of Walt. Walt doesn't see him. He doesn't know Jesse's there. He's just waiting for Jesse to show up, and Jesse sees some strange guy looking at him. And at this point, Jesse believes that this is some guy who may want to kill him, or it's one of Saul's guys, someone that is working with Walt, who is probably going to try to kill Jesse, because this guy's just staring at Jesse. So Jesse, instead of going towards Walt, he turns around, he goes to a payphone. He calls Walt on Walt's cell and tells him, this is not going to work. I see what you're trying to do. And Walt's like, what? Jesse, come on, let's meet, or whatever. Whatever he says. And Jesse basically tells Walt, I'm going to get you. I'm going to kill you. He didn't exactly say that. I'm paraphrasing. I forget exactly what Jesse told Walt in that conversation. But Jesse hangs up the phone. Walt's freaking out. He looks all around. He can't find Jesse. Jesse leaves the payphone area. Hank, meanwhile, is watching this whole thing. He hears, he heard that phone conversation between Jesse and Walt, and he's all pissed that Jesse didn't go through with this. And it turns out Walt leaves the plaza, And it turns out that guy that was staring at Jesse was just a random guy. And I was like, oh man, that guy wasn't with Walt. I was shocked at that. I really was. I thought that was one of Saul's guys or someone that was going to kill Jesse, but it wasn't. It was just a random guy. We realized this because he picks up a little girl and hugs her and, realizes it's just a father waiting for his daughter or whatever. And he just happened to be looking at Jesse. So that sucked. But anyway, Jesse leaves. Walt leaves the plaza. Hank picks up Jesse and he's like, what the hell is that? You were supposed to go over there and talk to him. And Jesse's like, don't worry, we're going to get him, but we're going to use a different way. We're going to get him in his own house or whatever. He says something like that. And we realize, so Jesse's still going to work with Hank at this point. And so that's how that part of the story ends. And then we literally see Walt walking to his car. He takes out his cell phone. And this is how they end the episode. Walt calls... what's his name? He calls Todd and tells him, listen, Todd, I have another job for you and your father. And that's how they end the episode. So we can infer that Walt has probably told Todd, listen, I have another job for you. This job is most likely Walt needs them to kill Jesse. So he's probably going to send Todd and his father and their guys to kill Jesse, because Jesse is after Walt. He told Walt that on their payphone conversation, on the payphone, when he was talking to Walt on the phone. He told him, I'm basically going to kill you. So Jesse's still pissed at Walt, and apparently Walt is going to get Todd and his father to try to kill Jesse. So that's how they ended the episode. That was pretty interesting. I like how they ended the episode. Very, very they kind of left us hanging, but in a way they didn't. Last week, they completely left us hanging. I was like, oh, come on. I can't believe you ended it like that. I like the way they ended this episode. So, guys, yeah, overall, I enjoyed the episode. I want to talk a little bit more about it. That's basically the whole plot summary. I will give my predictions to next week's episode in a minute or two. But a few things I want to mention. This episode was good, but in my opinion, last week's episode was just a little bit more intense. I mean, come on. Walt's confession last week, that killed me. That really just, I was like, what? And, Jesse finding out about the rice and cigarette. That episode was excellent. This episode was good, but I don't think it met the standards of last week's episode. It was still intense. I thought last week's episode was a lot more intense. Definitely had my heart beating a lot more last week. But this week, a couple of interesting things happened. Apparently, Jesse is working with Hank, and now Jesse's going to develop this new method to get Walt, and I don't know what that's going to be. So yeah, I did really enjoy the episode. Now, a lot of people are actually really shocked that, or I think they're shocked that Jesse is working with Hank, because in the early part of this episode, Jesse is really working with Hank to put Walt in jail. Hank doesn't want to kill Walt; he wants to throw him in jail. And Jesse is working with Hank, and they're both working to get Walt in jail. And a lot of people were shocked. I was kind of shocked at that too, because last week people were saying, I think Jesse wants to kill Walt. I don't think he wants to throw him in jail. People were commenting on my review of last week's episode. I reviewed last week's episode. People were saying, Walt doesn't, Jesse doesn't want to throw Walt in jail. It's Hank who wants to do that. But that's how it looked in this episode. But apparently Jesse has this new scheme. Now, we don't know if he's going to kill Walt or what he has in mind for what he wants to do with Walt. That's how they left us hanging with that. So we can speculate. We can just speculate now. I'm pretty sure that he's going to try to kill Walt. And he's going to try to get Hank's help. I mean, I don't know. So, yeah, guys. Yeah, a couple other things. There was a nice tender moment between Walt and Walt Jr. at the pool of Walt's hotel. I liked that. There were a couple of really interesting parts in this episode. I just don't think it was as intense as last week's. It was still pretty good, though. I'm going to give this episode a 9 out of 10. Yeah, I'll go 9 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. Just not as intense as last week's episode. And I'm still a little iffy if Jesse just wants to put Walt in jail, because I seriously think he wants to kill him. It looks like both of them are going to try to kill each other now, because Walt is going to try to get Todd to kill Jesse, and Jesse is going to try to kill Walt, apparently. That's all speculation, though. Also, very shocked to see that Skyler just wants to kill Jesse, but it's for a good reason. He's after them. He was after them. So I understand why Skyler would want Walt, why she suggested Walt kill Jesse. So yeah, a lot of interesting things could happen. Trying to think of a couple of other things to talk about. I liked the title of this episode. I thought that was really nice. The reference to Old Yeller, that was pretty cool. I think that next week's episode is going to be a little bit more intense. I like where they're going with the show. I think some fans might be a little upset that Jesse's working with Hank. But I predicted that. I was so happy when I was watching it and I saw Hank barge in there. I'm like, oh my god, I was right. I kid you not, guys. Literally during that commercial break, right before Hank met Jesse in Walt's house, I said to myself, Hank's gonna meet up with Jesse in Walt's house. I had a feeling that would happen, and it did. I was so happy. But I'm serious. I seriously, honestly predicted that. I predicted that they would work together, and I even saw that coming. I kind of saw that coming, that Hank would stop Jesse. I don't know. A part of me saw that coming. So anyway, guys, yeah. Predictions for next week. As I said, I really enjoyed this episode. I would probably give it a 9 out of 10, as I said. Predictions for next week. I think that next week's episode is going to show Todd and his father and their men. Maybe they're getting ready to carry out Walt's plan. The promo showed Skyler and Walt Jr. in the car wash, like looking horrified. So maybe Jesse goes over to the car wash or something. Maybe he wants to attack Walt's family. But I don't know if Hank would go with that. Do you guys think that Hank would go with Jesse going after Skyler or Walt Jr.? I don't think Hank would be up for that. I think Jesse would. I think Jesse, maybe he's up for that. I don't know. Maybe he wants to hurt Skyler or something like that. So that's why they were looking horrified at the car wash. I mean, I don't know. Anything could happen. I really want to know what Jesse's plan is. Like, how is he going to try to kill Walt? He obviously wants to kill him, but the big question is how. And I still think he's going to work with Hank. I still think that they're going to keep this... keep that relationship going. I think he's still going to try to work with Hank just to get Walt. But will Hank... If Jesse suggests that they kill Walt in some way, would Hank go for that? I don't know. Probably not, but I'm not exactly sure. So anyway, guys, that's my review of the episode. What did you guys think of this episode? Let me know. I'm sorry if I kind of messed up the review a bit, guys. I talked a lot about a lot of things. I might have confused you guys a bit. So if you have any questions, let me know down below. If you wanted to talk about anything, if you want to discuss anything, let me know down below in the comments. And also leave your predictions for next week. What do you think Jesse is planning to do? And do you think that Todd and his father and their men, do you think that they could possibly kill Jesse? So, guys, let me know about all that down below in the comments. Thank you, as always, for watching. I got to go watch Talking Bad. It's on in like 3 minutes, so I want to go watch that right now. So, thanks a lot for watching, guys, and bye.